The first step is to download the data entry template file from Google Drive or WhatsApp and copy it somewhere on your device like a new folder. Then rename the copied file and replace the starting section of the file name with the name of the 2 or 3 surveyors who administered the questionnaires. You can separate the names using underscore or spaces. Now you can start entering the data in this renamed file. First, enable the editing in Excel. The first sheet is the key. It lists every question number, the unique field name for every sub-question, which will be useful in statistical software like Stata or SPSS, the data type, that is, code, number, text or date, the description of the question, and the exact response codes or format to use. The key also specifies the sheet number in which the question can be found and the entry type of that sheet as single row entry or multi-row entry depending on a particular question. If you're unsure about any question, don't guess and check this key. There are total 17 sheets along with the key in the template. Ensure that you enter data in each of the 17 sheets. The sheet title include the number, the data entry type with S meaning single row entry and M meaning multi-row entry, followed by the sheet name. Now it's time to get your filled questionnaire and start entering data. Switch to sheet 1 and enter the common data that will repeat in every sheet and row and will serve as the link for each questionnaire. You can use simple serial number 1, 2, 3 and so on for the household ID. Just make sure to not repeat the ID for different questionnaires. Then enter the name of the surveyors. In case there were 3 surveyors, just include the third name along with first or second name using a comma or and. Enter the date of survey, village name, Gram Panchayat name, and then the latitude and longitude. You may enter the coordinates as degree decimals or degree minutes seconds as specified in the key. You may copy this common data to every sheet right now or later as you progress through them. The first question is name of the respondent and has a data type of text, so write the name. The second and third questions have codes, so enter the code. The fourth and fifth question require multi-row entry and are part of sheet 2 and sheet 3 respectively. So switch to the next sheet for question 4. Enter the name in text, gender in code, age in numbers, then relation in text and so on. Note that for any question with other as an option, a separate column to enter text relating to the other option has been created. If the filled option is not other, this column will remain empty. For example, in this case, the primary occupation is code 21, not code 25, which is other, so the column for other text will remain empty. In case the chosen option was other, 25 as code will be entered in code column, and the text will go in next column. Similarly, the cell for any unfilled question will also remain empty. For example, in this case, the respondent had no secondary occupation, so the column for that question and the column for other option of that question will both remain empty. Similarly, enter the data of the other household members in the subsequent rows. Make sure to copy the common data to all those rows. Now let's move back to the first sheet and enter the response to the first part of the fifth question, that is whether any member migrated or not. If yes, that is code 1, then proceed to the multi-row entry sheet 3 and fill the details of all members that migrated. Or if the answer to the first part is no, that is code 0, the follow-up section in sheet 3 will remain empty and you will move to the next question, that is question 6. Fill all the questions in this sheet. Here, the other option needs to be entered for garbage collection. So, code 5 will be entered and then the text associated with other will be entered in the next column dedicated to text data type. Moving to section B, enter data for 13 and 14 question. Remember to convert the land area units to acres. For conversion of canal to acre, multiply the land area in canal with 0.125. If the answer to question 13 is yes, then question 15 on landholding, part of the multi-row sheet. 4 will be filled, otherwise the sheet 4 will be skipped. In this case, it will be filled. Choose the type of land from the drop-down menu or manually type the other type of land if required. Then enter the area in number and code for legal status. In some questions, multiple options were true. For example, some households owned land parcel both within and outside village. Therefore, in order to enter such data, separate columns for each option has been created and needs to be filled. For example, in this case, the household owned the cultivated and irrigated land within village only, so enter code 1, meaning yes, in land location option 1 that is within village, and 0, meaning no, in the next column for outside village. Each sheet includes the last column as remarks column, where the surveyor can write remarks or observations related to the data entered in that row and sheet. For example, if the household owned more cultivated land earlier, this detail should be entered in the remarks column. Surveyor can write any observation or remarks about the data here. Enter data on other types of land in the subsequent rows. And ensure that all common details are copied consistently across each row for the same household in multi-row sheets such as this one. Return to sheet 1 and enter the response for question 16. If the response is yes, proceed to sheet 5, the multi-row sheet for livestock details. Enter all responses for question 17 using the multi-row format following the same procedure used earlier for land details. If a response is not available for any question, for example, the market value of livestock, leave the corresponding cell empty. Here, multiple purposes of livestock may apply. Enter 1 for yes and 0 for no, for each option accordingly. In this case, the household owns only one type of livestock, so only one row has been filled in this multi-row sheet. However, depending on the household, you may need to fill in multiple rows. Return to sheet 1 and enter data for question 18, 19 and 20. For question 19, if only land was sold, enter the land details and leave columns related to livestock sold empty or vice versa. Question 75, that is ration card type, is also part of sheet 1. Now move to sheet 6 and enter all crop-related details using the multi-row format. If the household is not engaged in agriculture, leave this sheet completely empty. Remember to convert all land area values into acres before entering the data. And leave any question with no response blank. For human labor expenses, calculate the value by multiplying the number of household members engaged in agriculture, the number of days they worked in the fields for that crop, and the labor charge per day. Now move to the single row sheet 7 and enter responses for questions 22 to 28 under section C. In this case, the household does not sell its produce, so all market-related questions will be blank, except for storage. If there are any remarks or observations related to the data in this row, write them in the remarks column. Now move to the single row sheet 8 for section D and enter the response to the first part of question 29. If the response is yes, coded as 1, proceed to the multi-row sheet 9 and enter details of the non-agricultural commodities produced by the household, following the same procedure used earlier for crop details. If the household does not produce any non-agricultural products, skip this step and move on to the next questions. In this case, the household does not produce any non-agricultural products, so sheet 9 has been left blank. Move to the single row sheet 10 and enter the data for questions 35 to 40 under section E. Then move to the multi-row sheet 11 and enter the data for question 41. Use separate rows for different food item groups and fill in the details for each group accordingly. Next, switch to the single row sheet 12 and enter responses for questions 42 to 57 under section F. Carefully fill in all applicable fields, keeping the reference period of each question in mind. Leave any questions with no response blank and use the text data type column when other option applies. Similarly, switch to the single row sheet 13 and enter responses for questions 58 to 67 under section F. Some questions, such as 59, 60, and 64, use a tick all that apply format. As a result, separate columns for each option are provided in the template. Enter 1 for all options that are true and 0 for other options. Now move to sheet 14 and enter responses for question 68 under section H. Enter data only for the assets owned by the household and skip the rest. Use the drop-down menu to select the asset item or manually type the name if an other asset needs to be recorded. Enter data of questions 69 to 74 of section 1 in single row sheet 15. Switch to the multi-row sheet 16 and enter responses for question 76 under section J. Make sure to enter data of all schemes the respondent was aware of, not only those from which they benefited. In case of a scheme not part of the drop-down menu, manually type the name. HymCare, for example, in this case. Finally, switch to sheet 17 and enter the response to the open-ended question 77, along with any relevant observations or remarks you may have. Now, repeat this entire process for the remaining questionnaires, and in no time you will have all the survey data digitized, organized, and ready for analysis. After entering the data of all the questionnaire, save and upload the file on the Drive folder.
I did it! I did it! I did it! 洗手啊！
Must